You are listening to the B2B Marketing Mindset with Pete Monfre and Bill Lowell. We want to help demystify marketing to reduce risk, drive more and better opportunities, and grow your business. Are you ready to master marketing?
Well, all right. It is that time again, Thursday. I don't know what the date is, May 9th. And of course, every Thursday we're here live on many platforms. We'll tell you more about that in a minute. I do see, I am a stickler for detail. And so I'm going to fix our non-centered subhead right now real quick. And so let me do that. Boom, just like magic. Hey, listen. I'm Pete Monfre, and two things everybody hates is head cheese and salespeople. You know the kind? They're on a mission to show you their boring demo, and they're going to talk about how awesome they are nonstop. You can't get a word in edgewise. They challenge you like they know your business better than you somehow. Like some 22-year-old dude is going to tell you how he's going to challenge you and tell you things that you don't know. And every agonizing second, all about them. So I call them sales holes. And today we're here with special guest Kenny Lange to show you a better way selling by helping is what we're going to call that. So let me push a button here and see if it works. And welcome my guest or my co-host Bill Lowell, who is a marketing research guru out there in Wisconsin. Have you tried the head cheese, Bill?
No, I haven't, but I've seen a lot of people do it, and it's actually quite comical, just so you know.
It's not cheese, though, right?
And
as somebody from Wisconsin, I'm figuring you know your cheese apart from your whatever that stuff is. It's not cheese, is it?
It's so funny. Everybody always says, they talk about cheese and they talk about brats from Wisconsin, and those are probably two of the things that I really don't care that much about. So pretty sad, but what are you going to do? But I think everybody stereotypes, that way. So.
I need a new shtick, actually. I think I've run out of like Wisconsin Midwestern digs.
I'll send you a bunch in the future.
I've been doing this for a year, so I don't know. I need 52 insults a year. Huh?
I'll send you a bunch of others.
You're going to send me some? Well, I appreciate that. That's perfect. Well, listen up. I got a great guest today, and his name is Kenny Lange, and not to be confused with Johnny Lange, but he is, this is such a great topic. This was Kenny's idea, and he's an organizational leadership development coach. He turns purpose into performance, works with a lot of nonprofits, purpose-driven organizations. He's got some insight about sales and leadership, sort of the intersection of those things. So welcome, Kenny.
Thank you for having me, Pete and Bill. And if you need some Texas jokes, I mean, we can riff on those a while as well.
There's plenty of those. I was surprised you wanted to talk about sales, right? And I don't know why. I guess I just read through the website and that sort of thing. But I love the topic. So tell me why that topic was. It was your number one thought. It was your first thought. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I think I resonate with what you first said. I feel like I'm an anti-sales hole. And early on in my career, I was fresh out of college and was thinking, okay, I got to put food on the table. I had a young wife, young kid, and I found sales jobs are easier to come by. And usually that's when people get indoctrinated into, really bad sales habits. And my dad happens to sell. He's a financial planner, insurance. And I said, all right, you've done really well in sales. What do you have for me? What can you give me to train? And so he gave me this is how long ago it was. I had CDs on selling insurance, and I just tried to, chew up the meat, spit out the bones when it came to the sales principles. And because I always thought I'm too honest to be a salesperson. Because in my opinion, salespeople, if that was your profession, because everybody could sell a little bit, but if that's what your title was, you're probably a lying, manipulative son of a gun. And I was like, that's not how I see myself. But I quickly figured out you can just be yourself and figure out if the person in front of you needs what you do, and you tell them how it could help them and their goals, Well, you could actually sell and not have to lie, or be a jackwagon, or be, this pressure filled individual that, made people's stomach turn.
So, Bill, you've had your business 34 years, built a successful business. Uh, what are your thoughts on this?
It's funny because after I got out of graduate school, um, somebody called me a salesperson once, and I got really offended. So probably just like Kenny, but my dad actually straightened me out. He said, actually, that's the greatest compliment in the world because everybody needs to be able to sell. It's just a matter of technique, and I think it goes to what Kenny was just talking about. So if you're able to help somebody, if you're able to work with them and fill their needs, I think that's going to be the key. And so I look at it as a compliment. I think anybody that's listening, no matter what you're doing, you should be a salesperson, whether you're an owner of a business or you're leading a business or a nonprofit. So I think it's really key. But I think it comes down to like what Kenny just said. It's a matter of how you do it, process, and so that you're not doing something that's going to offend somebody, but you're going to do it that's going to help them.
Well, and nobody, when they're a kid, nobody says, "Hey, I want to grow up to be a salesperson," right? And I think there is this persona of the salesperson that most people have in their mind, and it is what we've been describing, right? And really, what they're talking about is an old-fashioned, out of date, in my opinion, 50s style sales approach. And it's the never take no for an answer. I had somebody trying to sell me some home services, and this kid, he just would not take no for an answer until I had to get actually kind of rude with him, which is pretty easy for me, actually. It wasn't a big stretch. But I just thought, man, that's so outdated. Follow up, follow up, follow up. Keep following up. Overcome those objections. What we're describing is not a salesperson. It is a bad salesperson, okay? And full disclosure, I mean, I don't think I was ever very pushy, but I was in that sort of follow up, and we built a successful company. Also, 34 years ago, we started, and we had success with it, and we were bringing in big clients, and everything seemed like, hey, this works. But at some point, I realized my life was hell. And I was going at the whim of these prospects, and I was following up endlessly with people who were never going to buy. And that's when I discovered a better way to do this. In my case, it was Sandler. And it really changed my life for the better. And it is centered around honesty, transparency, saying what you feel, saying no a lot. We'll talk about some of these things today. But there is a better way to sell. And let's forget about the word selling completely, because if you're trying to convince, you're trying to cajole, you're making moves on people, you're using techniques on them. All right, it is manipulative, and you're playing into that stereotype. And chances are, I think the challenge is that old way does work just enough to keep you doing it, right?
Right.
But when you discover there's a better way, I think everything changes. So let's jump into it, because really this first bullet point is the first stage in the Sandler. They call it the Sandler submarine. I'm not even going to explain that. Maybe on a different program. But build genuine rapport. Kenny, tell us about that. It's your bullet point, bro.
Yeah, it is. I will own it. But
It's our bullet point.
Whoa.
we got to go from I to we, don't we?
That's right.
Yeah, and I chose the word genuine because I've been through sales training, as I'm sure you guys and many of your listeners have been, where it's like, well, you got to build rapport. But you end up, and to be clear, I'm all for techniques, skills, things like that. I think where we get into the sales hole territory is in the motivation and the use of it, right? Like the spirit with which it's given. And you might, like, to your point, people are being sleazy and still making sales. But guess what? You're only going to sell them once.
Yeah.
You're not going to get referrals. You're not going to build lifetime value. And to be honest, there's so much data that says if you can retain somebody, it's a lot more cost effective than having to sell brand new all the time. So if you are still convinced that you need to use all these, tricks and stuff like that to convince people to buy what you're offering, you're now just flying in the face of data, and you're willfully ignoring it, which I might call stupid, but some people would.
I'll call it that.
But yeah, no, that's good. We're all in agreement there. But in the genuine rapport, you've got to. I heard somebody put it this way: you've got to connect with the heart before you ask for a hand. When it comes to leadership, right? That's why I teach all of my clients to, do core value like shout outs and check-ins and meetings and get to know your people. They're not just units of performance. They're humans. And so when I sit down with somebody, it's not in a hey, I got to know everything about your life story, but it's showing genuine interest and curiosity about who they are, their situation, their challenge. It's ask real questions, and they may have a point. It may help you understand things, but you're also just getting to know them, because for the most part, people aren't buying a thing. They're buying from a person. Right. So whether you're B2B, and I've heard this is not unique to me, whether you think you're in B2B or B2C sales, you're actually in H to H, is human to human. There's a human sitting on the other side of that call, that table, that conversation from you. And if you start there, then you can just connect as people. They have dreams, they have frustrations, they have relationships that aren't going well. They have all those things. Connect with them there, because at the end of the day, they have something that if they could solve for themselves, they probably wouldn't be talking to you in the first place. And maybe you're going to get the chance to help them make progress towards doing their job well and making good on their goals. And I think if you start from that place, from that motivation, the rest of this becomes easier. But if you start from I've got to make this sale, I've got to convince this person that what I have is the best thing since sliced bread. I don't know why sliced bread is the standard of greatness, but it is. And I've got to do this, or I don't know if I'm going to pay the bills. I got to make this next commission tier, and I've got to do all this stuff. And by the way, businesses are as guilty of creating bad salespeople as bad salespeople are guilty of being them. Because incentivize what you want to see repeated. So if you want bad things repeated, build an incentive plan that creates crappy salespeople. But it's also building genuine rapport can't be about my transference of my need to make this sale onto you. Right. It can't ever be that. And I say that being an entrepreneur for the last almost a decade, wondering, how am I going to feed my family if I don't make this sale?
Right.
How do you remain cool? Because people sense your neediness. If you need the sale, they sense it. If you're trying to convince them of something, they sense it, and they are looking for the exit as fast as humanly possible. So that's why build genuine rapport is always my first step for myself, and if I'm coaching or recommending these sort of things to others.
Bill is a natural at this. He is just so personable. He always looks great. And I think it just really comes natural. I mean, it's not a technique with Bill. It's authentic, and I remember when I first met you. It was one of the few things I remember from way back then, I instantly liked you.
Thank you.
There was an actual real connection, and so I think if you're thinking it's all about you and what you sell and what you want, you're not gonna get rapport.
I think, and thank you for that. I really appreciate that. I think you said it. Whether you got to be genuine. I mean, I think people can see a phony a mile away. So, and there are some people, Kenny, you probably will laugh at this, but Pete and I've seen it so many times where somebody kind of goes through the steps, like, oh, I got to build rapport. Okay, so let's talk for 5 or so minutes. Okay, exactly. Check that off. Now I'm on to the next thing. And you just have to I like to just take a genuine interest in people. And I guess maybe Pete, you and I are a little bit different stage now. I don't want to work with anybody. I don't want to meet with anybody that I don't like. I'm willing to give people a chance, but if for some reason it's just, if it's not right, it's like why waste your time? So to me, the building the rapport is really important. It's like, and whether it's finding out what their issues are or what about their life, any of those things, in my opinion, are really important because it's like you can build deep relationships. And I had a mentor at one time that said, then you're doing business with your friends all the time. And what better way is there to do business than to just go out and meet with your friends and do business? And so that's my pleasure. That's my enjoyment.
Well, and I'm not really in a different place. I mean, I think it's in the Sandler process. It is step one, and it's funny. The reason they use this real crappy illustration of a submarine, and I'm sorry, guys, it's crappy, but I used to wonder why is this a submarine? And it shows each step of the sales process. It's kind of a linear order. I mean, it can flip around, but very very important. The first step, build rapport, and the reason is there's a porthole in every section of the submarine where you can escape. And so if I don't like you, because if I'm talking to somebody about doing business together, it's easy to think as somebody who is essentially a salesperson. I hate the words, but trying not to be a sales hole. You're evaluating them. I think people prospects forget this. They think it's all about that you need to pass some test for them. No, actually, it goes both ways. You need to pass some tests for me, and my tests are probably more stringent, actually. And so if I don't like you, we're done. I'm out. And of course, I'm polite about it, right? It's like if you say, "Hey, listen, you don't have the budget for this. I don't think we're a match at this time. If something changes, let me know." I don't know if rapport works like that. Like when you're not a jerk, call me, no, I think you're just out. But there are very few people that I don't like. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I'm interested in people. Sometimes it's hard for me to get past that stage. Like, I just want to talk about them and their life. And, I love it. And so genuine rapport, you got to care about people. If you're going to be in the top, a friend of mine, Scott Ingram, has an amazing podcast. And I'm going to think of the name of it soon. Hey, can you look up Scott's podcast? Can you search that for us? I think it's fm1.com is the website, and I believe it's the Sales Success Podcast. But he talks to people that are in the upper 1% of sales performers, and and every one of these people is just a genuinely nice person who lives to serve other people. I don't think it's a coincidence, right? But we'll check on that URL. Make sure we get that right. Scott's amazing, and it's a great podcast.
There's all kinds of research too, Pete, and you guys probably both know this, but like people, if you listen to somebody and they tell you and they talk for, let's say that you meet for somebody for coffee or for that first meeting, and they talk for an hour kind of nonstop. I'm talking about the client side now, and you really just let them go. They leave that meeting thinking that they had the greatest conversation in the world with you, but all you did is do a really good job of listening, and you probably really learned a lot about them and their challenges and other things. So it's just an effective thing. So that should be your goal, in my opinion, is to kind of really just listen to people.
If you didn't make a sale, you made a friend. So it's called Sales
That's
Success
right.
Stories, and look that up. So, but I felt that right away with Kenny too when I met you. Kenny, you're a very genuine guy. But let's move on to the second point. We could beat this one to death, but I want to give Kenny more opportunity to talk because he's the guest.
Yeah.
Discover real challenges.
Yeah.
Discover real challenges.
That I draw from one of my favorite books. It's called The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay Stanier. And in there, it's not a sales book, but I think you can learn a lot from it because I've been on a journey of just discovering better and better questions to ask and how to phrase them. And his second question is, what's the real challenge here for you? Which sounds deceptively simple. Is you got to get into the heart of why are we even talking? I mean, maybe don't say it quite like that, but maybe you do. You feel it out in the moment. But literally, I was on a call, a sales call, proposal presentation this morning, and was asking, so what's actually going on? What's like, well, we're talking, and I have services that you know about, and I know a little bit about your company, but tell me, like, what is the challenge that's happening? Well, we're facing this. Great. Well, what are you doing about it right now? Okay, I hear that. And what does your ideal solution look like? Cool. What happens if you don't solve this? And you start to get into the emotion of it. I mean, you need the tactical logistics of their challenge and their problems or their pain, whatever term you prefer. And it is pain, right? Like, people don't take action unless they're in enough pain.
Right.
And there was a phrase I say, and most people cringe when I say it, but I learned in a sales training. I won't name which one, but it said, your job as a salesperson is to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. And while I do think that there can be some truth to that, I think more of the first part is comfort the afflicted. Like, again, if they could solve it on their own, they would have.
Right.
So there's a reason that they're on the call, and it's your job to uncover it and maybe help them put language to it. Because it's one of those things, like, when I'm in the midst of it, I can't see the thing. We were talking, before we started rolling about, messaging, branding, being, marketing agency stuff. And I was joking that in my time being a digital agency owner, I could help just about anybody quickly. I was very confident that I could ask you questions and hear what was going on and then repeat it back in a clarified way. And they go, yes, that's the language I've been looking for. And so when you're discovering what the real challenge is, you've got to name it. And I reference a whole lot of Chris Voss and his work with Never Split the Difference in the Black Swan Group. Phenomenal resources. I can't, brag on it enough. But he talks about getting people to not say you're right, but say that's right. And so my goal is that I've asked good enough questions to understand things that when I say, hey, it sounds like, or it looks like, or it seems like this, and this is happening. And they go, that's right. And I go, okay, couple things. One, I can clearly understand whether or not I can help them, because that's got to be my job. Like what you were saying is the portholes, there's exits all over the place. And the term I like to use here, as well as in leadership and hiring, firing, HR situations, is I'm not looking for good or bad, right or wrong. I'm just looking for fit.
Right.
Am I a fit for you? Are my services a fit, which I know we'll talk about next, but is there an alignment there? But if I can get them to say that's right or some version thereof, and then I go, okay, great. Number one, I needed to know that I clearly understood what the heck they were talking about, because I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to somebody thinking I had a grasp on the challenge, the problem that I was trying to sell a solution for, and I totally missed it, lost the sale, they ghosted me, or at worst, they were like, it's clear you don't know, you don't care, this is a transaction to you. And I left a bad taste in their mouth, which not only ruined the sale then, but if I ever encountered anybody that they knew, they were never going to have a good thing to say about me. So that's why I feel like discovering the real challenge and being able to clearly articulate it and get a that's right is number two, after being able to build rapport.
I agree. If there's not, I always say that, I've met salespeople that their philosophy, and again, this goes back to this traditional selling, you try to close every deal. It doesn't matter. You say whatever you have to say to make that deal. You close every deal. There's no such thing as something that's not a fit, right? And this goes on in the marketing industry all of the time. And it never ends well, really, for anyone, but it is a very ingrained thing. And when I initially meet with anyone, that is my number one agenda is, can I even help you? Like, I try to explain to folks that in the initial meeting, I actually don't have anything to sell to you because I don't really know enough about the nature of your problems. There's a very good chance, an overwhelming chance, maybe an 85% chance that I am not your guy, right? And so how can I sell you something at that stage? And so, but it's hard for people to understand because they're absolutely under siege from these other types of salespeople. And I was interested in this topic because, well, we'll cover this here in the next couple of points, but I'd like to throw it over to Bill. What do you see in terms of, the pain around research? Or
Well, I mean, I think the key thing is, and I like what Kenny said. And by the way, the coaching habit, I was going to get up and go get it because I've got it sitting here on my shelf.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great book, and they do have great questions. So shout out on that book. But Pete, you and I've talked about this before. The technique that I've learned a long time ago is called consultative type of selling, and it's just exactly what Kenny's talking about. Finding out what's going on with the challenges, and what you just said is like, are you even able to help them? But one of the things that I think makes somebody really good at sales, even if they're not doing sales, is to be a great resource. So, even if somebody's telling me their problems and I know I can't handle it or I don't do what they need, I probably know somebody that can help them, and I'm going to refer them or at least give them a few names. So part of that real challenge, in my opinion, is, again, I go back to just doing a really good job of listening, understanding. I like what Kenny said, we call it mirroring back, but paraphrasing what is it that they just explained and having them agree to it, and then making that decision. Are you able to go to that next step, or is this something that's going to be a referral, or like you said, Pete, maybe there's just a way that you're going to just shut it down. But to me, that's really an important stage, because then no one wastes their time. And one more thing that I was thinking about as Kenny was talking about this, we've all been, and when I say we, think of all of your clients. Everybody's been through some kind of sales training seminar. They've read a book, something. At least if they haven't, shame on them. But so we all recognize the steps. So when somebody is doing this type that you're talking about, Pete, when they just start going through the check marks, I just start chuckling to myself, because it's like, okay, I know that step. Okay, I know exactly. Okay, now they're going to go to this step. I mean, it's like you can just see it a mile away. And if you're doing this, if you're out there in podcast land and you're listening to us and you're utilizing that, I mean, people are onto you faster than you can imagine. So that's my 2 cents worth.
Absolutely, and it's distracting for them. So, and this is where, I went through. It took me about a year to understand Sandler, but it didn't take me a year to I always say understand it, but it didn't take a year to understand it. It took about a year for me to internalize it and make it my own. Mm-hmm. And so that I was being authentic, that I was being transparent, that I'm not trying to manipulate, that I really do believe in. There's one thing that David Sandler teaches, and I think the example is, let's say you're on your way to a meeting and you hit a dog. You're driving your car and you hit a dog. Terrible thing. I love dogs. But so you're upset, right, when you go in. What do you do, right? How do you handle something like that? Sandler would say, be honest. Hey, guys, if I seem a little off, I can't believe I hit a dog on the way here. It's terrible. I am really upset. I'm sorry. That's why I'm late. You can see the room all of a sudden decompress. You can say, okay, I had to get that out. Let's move on. Now, a traditional salesperson would never do that. They would try to cover that up, that they're upset or whatever. And they'd probably wonder why those people were shut off, right? Exactly. And so if you're the one honest salesperson that they're talking to, what an advantage you have, right? And you're asking questions that the other people were barfing all their stuff up. What do they call it? Barfing up your candy in the lobby, and you're the only one that's asking intelligent questions. Again, who's more likely to get the deal? And it's okay if you don't get the deal. That's the other thing. Honestly, like you can't be looking at your wallet and deciding whether it's a deal for you or not. I've said no a million times when my wallet was pretty thin. It's the hardest thing in the world to do, but it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing for your business. It's the right thing for the prospect too. But real quick before we move on, I want to tell the folks that are listening out in audio land, because we are syndicated nationally, and you can pick up this podcast really on all the platforms where fine podcasts are consumed. But if you're just listening through your ear holes, you're not seeing the entire picture. This is actually a video podcast. And so you can go over to b2bmarketingmindset.com and you can subscribe there. That's right, the whole picture. And there's more benefits than just seeing our lovely faces. There's a lot more content. We try to expand on every episode. We don't always have the time to do it, but we do it as much as we can. There are going to be courses that are rolling out there. There's a lot of good stuff and a community there, so you can subscribe there. And Kenny, this would be a good opportunity. You have a podcast. What's it called, and where can people find it?
Yeah, thank you. It's called How Leaders Think with Kenny Lange, and it is also available wherever fine podcasts are consumed. I also have a video version on my web, or well, it's on the website as well as YouTube, / at Kenny Lange if you're going to YouTube land.
Fantastic.
Yep. It's been, and to be honest, I was going to mention it, not to promote it, but I've used that as a way to improve my question asking skills because it forces me to be in that host position. So,
Right.
I have guests, but I get training for free.
Well, here, I was telling Bill, sometimes we're the educators and sometimes we're the students on this program. So,
Yes.
It's awesome. We love doing this. And, we just passed, I think, 1,000, 10 subscribers on YouTube. But we're on Twitch. We're on Facebook Live. We're on LinkedIn Live. We're on Twitter Live. And so every Thursday. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that out there. It is a plug. Get over it. Let's move on to our next subject. Determine services alignment. Another way of saying, look, are we a match? Man, I think everything starts with, do I like you? And do you like me? Do we like each other? Right? And then, are we even a match?
Yeah, I mean, classic. Am I trying to put a square peg in a round hole? It's just it's never going to work. I think one of the things as you were talking about like trying to close every deal, not is, there's the that old saying of ABC, always be closing. And I know that sounds cool and it sounds sexy, but honestly, I think you should trade it in for ABQ, always be qualifying, and just nonstop qualification, and to almost, not to jump ahead, but almost you're constantly trying to get them to say no and qualify themselves out. Like, yeah, I don't know if I can help you. 85% of people I talk to are not a great fit for what I do. I really need, I don't know enough. I sent an email almost exactly like what you had just said is, yeah, I got introduced and I said, yeah, I don't know enough about you to know if I can help you. So I'd love a conversation, and here might be a few things to bring to that conversation. Just so you have them handy and you're not, we're not like staring at each other awkwardly while you're digging up numbers or something like that. But I think one of the things you have to get really clear and really clear on is what is it that you offer, and not the thing you do. What is the outcome, the benefit you sell? And I know there's a classic like, sell me this pen, and don't tell me about the features, tell me about the benefits, tell me how you're gonna like sign an executive order or whatever you want to play it up to be. But that was something I had to get really clear on with my coaching practice now. It's my, again, it's second business, and it's a little more amorphous than being a marketing agency and selling, I sell inbound marketing services. I sell CRM implementation, migration and configuration. I'm building websites and selling SEO. Like, those are things that are sort of already predefined and very discrete. And now I'm selling coaching services and it feels ethereal. Like, what do you do? I coach. The hell does that mean? Whatever you need it to mean. Like, that's not good enough. And so I've gone through a process. Thankfully, I have some coach mentors that are further ahead in their process than me, and I've gotten really clear on the things that I offer and where those buckets fall. And now when I talk to people and I'm asking, what are your challenges? What are the things? And I can go, oh yeah, so here is what I can do. Am I going to help you focus your organization? Am I going to help you fuel high performance teams, or am I going to help you create leaders worth following? Because when I can listen, I can say, oh, you're trying to do this. And they go, that's right. And I go, great, I do have something. Or if I say, you're trying to do this, to Bill's point, I love if I can't help you, I probably know somebody who can. Someone who takes a different slice of what I do. Like I have a friend who is in coaching, and we are certified on some similar tools, but he takes a different spin. He actually goes deeper on some cultural things, core values things, and has an approach to it that it wasn't for me, wasn't a fit for me and how I wanted to help people. But I know if they're struggling there, I can send them over with complete confidence and they're going to get help. And not only does that help him and he feels better about our relationship as colleagues, but that person feels better. And Bill, I'm sure you have the stats to back all this up of how did I improve my own brand, like the emotions people have about my brand, because I pointed them in the right direction to get their problem solved, not just try to get some cash out of them. So you need to be first clear about what the heck it is you do as an outcome, because you're going to have to marry that with the challenges that you learn, and then be honest about them. I had to tell the guy this morning, I was like, yeah, so I do these 3 things. Honestly, based on what you just shared with me, I don't think this one's a fit for you. So let's please ignore that on here. You can read it if it's helpful to you to be aware of it, but I don't think it's for you. These other 2 do align with you.
Right.
And when you're sitting there telling somebody, I don't think this is a fit, or I don't think I'm a fit, that's weird to them, to your point, Pete, that everybody else is working so hard to convince the person across from them that I'm the right person, this is the right thing, that
Right.
it's not that difficult to stand out. I think I was watching snippets of podcasts. Sometimes I do some mindless scrolling on Facebook Reels or something, but David Goggins was interviewed. I think it was on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he said it's so easy to be excellent and extraordinary and great nowadays because people are not willing to put in the work and to be honest with themselves and others. And so you really can stand out more than at any other time in history simply by doing simple things like saying, yeah, I don't think I'm right for you. And they're like, wait, no. And then they'll try to sell themselves back to you because, who likes to feel rejected?
Right. Well, and not to use it as a technique. You got to mean it. But,
for sure.
And I just want to make one comment and toss it over to Bill. So my sales trainer used ABC, authentic business conversations.
Ooh,
That's what you should do,
that.
right?
I like that.
So Bill, what do you think?
I think you guys have done a really good job of covering it. So I feel pretty content with that. But, I'll just review what we just talked about. Do a good job of listening, mirror back kind of what their issues or problems are, determine if there's a match or not for what you're doing. I love what Kenny said, sometimes it's not a match and it's not for them, but that's also, Pete, you and I have talked about this a million times. It's also the first rule of marketing. Everybody wants something they can't have. So when Kenny says, you aren't right for this one, but we could go to these other 2 services, you probably just made them want you more. So it's just kind of psychology.
If you're being honest and you can't help them, then it doesn't matter if they want you or not. If you use it as a technique, I think that's when people see through. But I like this, I really strive to do this, try to bring value at every touch. And that value could be, I'm going to introduce you to somebody, like if anybody wants to talk to me and I'm not a fit, I'm still going to help you solve your problem. All right. And it might be by introducing you to somebody or introducing you to a book, or I've even bought books and sent them to people. And one thing that I loved about this topic and I wanted to talk about it is because I get frustrated sometimes. I'll see somebody that I can help and I decide that I want to help them altruistically. Like, I don't think there's anything to sell to them. I don't really, but they'll give me the cold shoulder because they're assuming that I'm just a disguised sales call thing, and it's like, no, I really can be very altruistic, almost to my own detriment. And it kind of stings, I have to admit. But anyway,
There's been times though, Pete, I know you've done this, where you give something away for free, and that's
all the time.
That's really good too. So it's like, maybe you do something or you provide them with something, and that's to me, that's a wonderful thing. And then you're not asking for anything in return.
I was just talking to a super smart MBA in India, and we were talking about the economic differences and the pricing differences. And I told him, dude, you could quadruple your fee and still be super competitive in America. And I could see that this idea, and I'm going to keep helping this guy, and is going to change his life actually. And so that to me is really providing value. And there's nothing there for me other than, you should have seen him light up. He was in a different mindset in terms of what he was worth. And I just try to help him understand that. Ask if they would like help. Ask if they would like help.
Yeah.
Selling.
That was a newer
helping.
one to me. Yeah, it is helping. And so I don't know. Was I maybe I was contractually obligated to put the word help in here. No. But there was
Our lawyers will be in contact with you.
Good. My coach, who did a lot of my training and one-on-one and stuff like that with the system and soul framework that I use now, in some cases. But he gave me a book by a guy named Steve Chandler, called The Prosperous Coach. He co-wrote it with one of his most successful students, Rich Litvin. The audiobook is great because Rich has a British accent, so everything sounds smarter. But they talk about selling through the relationships, a lot of like what we've been talking about. But they had this one, it was a technique, but it was a question, but it was part of their process. They called it enrollment instead of, like, you enroll clients in what you do. You're not selling, so there's almost a application qualification. Is this a right fit sort of thing? And then they reached a moment where they would say, well, is this something you'd like help with? And because the determined services alignment, to be honest, is sort of happening simultaneously with the discovering the real challenge, and it's happening internally. And looking back at my sales career, while yes, I feel like I had really good success, doing outsource or outside sales for a large organization, leading a team. I did well there and did well with my first business, but this was a newer one that has been deceptively helpful to me, is not assuming that because I'm in a conversation with this person that they're ready for help or they would like me to help. And I'd get to a place and now I can say, well, here's what I'm hearing, blah, 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 blah. Is that right? Yeah. Well, would you like some help with that? And they may go, yeah, absolutely. Okay, great. Here's the areas where I feel like I could serve you and help you make some progress. I don't have any, silver bullets or cure-alls or anything like that, but I think I can help you with these couple of things that you mentioned, and I can make recommendations on the others. Because I've asked that question a few times over the last couple of years of starting my coaching practice, and I've had a few people go, you know what, like I have a coach, or we're pursuing this option or this avenue right now, and I'd like to finish my commitment to it and see if that pans out. And I felt like it stopped me from becoming a sales hole unintentionally, because I didn't launch into, here's all the ways I think I can help you. Instead, I just go, oh, that's great. Well, how can I support you in that? And they may go, nothing. And I may end up like what you were saying, Pete, is I may have a book for them. Like, hey, here's a book that helped me. Or, oh, you're doing this training? I've heard of that. Did you know that this book goes with it? And they may go, no, I didn't know. Great. Let me do that, make progress. Because I'm playing for the long game. Because in my opinion, relationships are the long game.
Right.
If I help them now, maybe they do or don't come in to be a client. As we were saying before we hit, the record button, I'm only looking to really have about 10 clients. I don't need to take everybody. I don't want to take everybody. I've already got, 47 children and all this other stuff. I'm going to pull my hair out if I have too many clients. So if I can
47.
help them, yeah, well, it feels like, actually my wife and I, we have parented 21 kids and counting, as foster parents and adoptive parents, but we can get so focused on, well, if I can't get them as a client, I'll be friendly to them and then they can move on. That person may actually know somebody who could benefit from your help. And you may just go, oh, well, hey, do you know anybody who could use what I do? And they may go, yeah, so-and-so tried what we're trying. It didn't work for them. Maybe you could talk to them. Great. I'd love to talk to them and chat and see if it's a fit. So that simple would you like help lets you know, do I proceed or do I stop and I pivot and I make sure that I'm ending this conversation on a positive note to increase brand sentiment, increase likelihood of referrals, or at least you're not talking crap about me in the marketplace. Because that, especially in an early stage business, your first 5 years, man, bad reputation can tank you. You already have so much going against you. You don't need people speaking negatively about you as an owner or a brand.
Absolutely. You know, we're almost out of time, but so I want to jump to the last point. We'll do our final thoughts, and this has been some really good stuff. But this next point is so important on a couple different levels. Start with no. Now I'm gonna have Kenny explain what he means by that, but I'm deriving something from it. It might be a little different. I like to let people know very early on that it is perfectly okay. The second best answer for me is no. I say, hey, look, I want to make sure that you're comfortable telling me no. If you don't think I'm a match, tell me no, and I'm going to extend to you the same courtesy. I've had people just sit back and say, no one has ever told me that. I appreciate that. Like, it just, they all of a sudden get very comfortable, and they will tell you no. And I'll usually make a joke, so just to make sure, you're gonna stomp my heart and just mash me if you don't feel you're good with that, okay? And just kind of make it a joke. But I really do, and this is where the traditional salespeople will be like, "You are nuts. What are you, nuts?" No, because what percentage of people are never going to say yes? Or maybe you're talking to somebody who's empowered to say no, but they're not empowered to say yes. I want to get to know as fast as possible, because I want to get through that 80 or 90% of people that I talk to who aren't a match, who aren't buying for whatever many reasons. I have to go through that anyway. That was one of the big things that Sandler changed, made my life better, was just giving permission for people to say no. But I think you mean something slightly different, so I'll throw it to you.
I think our definitions are cousins. Not like in an Arkansas way. I say that I'm in the South. That's fine. But
yeah, it's all right.
No, my mind changed on this again. Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, helped me, and then I followed on to another book that's called Start with No, and I just blanked on the author's name. But it refutes all of those, like you were talking about, those 50s salespeople strategy, and it followed even into the 60s and 70s of the path to yes. Just get them saying yes, and they won't be able to help themselves but agree to your contract or your terms or your service, whatever it is. And what is deceptive is that we don't sell like we buy. We lack empathy for what it's like to be the buyer when we're the seller. I don't know why it is we create the separation, but it takes intentional time and energy. But think about the last time you got called by some telemarketer and they were trying to like, well, don't you want to have a better life? Well, yeah, that's a stupid question. Of course I do. And you're just saying yes, yes, yes. You are looking for the exit door mentally and emotionally. And what you want to do is look, kind of like what you're saying. It's like, you can tell me no at any time. Or at the end to say, hey, if this is a bad idea, let's not do it. You give them permission along the way to say no and to exit. And in doing so, they may not actually want to say no, but if you give them permission to, they're more likely to stay with you. They just want to know that it's an option. I didn't actually want to say no. I just wanted to know that it was an option, because as salespeople, we probably do have the gift of gab, and we're friendly, and we got our techniques and all blah, blah, blah. And they will feel like we are cornering them instead of like, let's expand it, go whenever you want, and exit at any time. You're safe. Because what we do when we get on the path to yes is we have tried to take away people's safety, and they hate that. Yeah. And even if they say yes, they will hate you for it. And that's not worth the sale in my book.
Excellent. Bill's been quiet.
No, it makes sense to me, but I guess I go back and just think if you've done a good job of your discovery and you've done a good job of the alignment, you know, I don't even know if the next two steps are necessary. I mean, maybe so, just because you're going to know and they're going to know. At least I hope if you do a good job. But so the start with the no reminds me of the book about asking the question why. You know, why?
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah. Why? The book is Ask Why.
Yeah.
I can't. Simon.
Simon Sinek. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I always bring this up
why.
early in the process. Right. Start with why. Thank you. I let him know early in the process that you're not going to hurt my feelings. In fact, I really appreciate it. And then I use this language. I'm going to extend to you the same courtesy. Right. I'm going to tell you no. Probably will, actually, just statistically. But, you know, I hope not. You know, if I can help, I'd love to help. But maybe, you know, there's so many factors that could make it so that we're not a fit. Right. Maybe you can't afford me. Right? Maybe your pain is not acute enough where you're ready to take action. Maybe the impact isn't enough to justify what it's going to cost. A million things, right? And so I think that's really important. And, you know, I would love to have Kenny back on because I think, you know, this is another multi-episode topic, but I think there's other things that he can talk about. But we are almost out of time. So what I'd like to do is go to our final thoughts. Everybody stand by.
Final thoughts.
The infamous Final Thoughts cheesy graphic with the chipmunk voiceover. Kenny, what are your final thoughts? Let's start with our guest.
I think ultimately sales is a noble profession, and if you're somebody who is driven to help people, sales is for you. It's not for the slick talking individual. It's for those who genuinely want to make a difference in other people's lives. And if that motivates you, then you can be a great salesperson and build a great life and living for yourself doing that. You don't have to choose between being a decent person or building wealth.
Awesome. Bill, final thought.
I think I like that it is a noble profession, but in my opinion, I think everyone is a salesperson, whether they know it or want to do it. Everybody is. I mean, what are we doing right now? In a way, we're trying to sell because, you know, we're letting people know what we do or how we do it. And so everybody's a salesperson. Your question, and I think the decision that you have to make is, do I want to be good at it? And that's, if you do, listen to some of the things that we're talking about here today.
You know, and someday I'd love to do an episode about this strategy that we're engaging in right now. And it is all about helping people. We want to help you make better decisions. We want to help you avoid the people who are going to take advantage of you, right? We're going to help you save money. And so, you know, this is free. But do we get something out of it? Yes, we do. It helps us build thought leadership, build credibility. You know, if you want to see if we're for real, it's easy to scope us out. You can go decide for yourself. I'm not going to tell you if I'm for real or not. It's not for me to decide. But I think if you really are set on helping people and you're doing it sincerely in a servant leadership sort of way, one, you're going to be more successful, and two, your life's going to be better. That's how it was for me, right? My life got better. And so even though by objective measure there was success, but I was kind of a mess. And I'm glad Bill was there with me back 25 years ago to help me unmess myself. So really I'll always thank you for it. You know,
you weren't bad at all. You were actually,
boy,
you were quite comical and you were very good. But you don't give yourself enough credit.
Well, there was a time that I was getting very depressed, and it was because of the pressure that I was putting on myself. And you know, 9/11 kind of cured it for me, but looking back, I wish I would have had these tools. I wish I would have had this advice. I wish I would have had Kenny to help me not be the person that I'm really not that person. I don't think I was a sales hole, though. I don't think it went that far. But great topic, and I thank both of you. If you want to just stand by, we'll take it on home. And, you know, join us next Thursday. If you've made it this far, congratulations. But we'll be here next Thursday, 11 o'clock Central. all over the place. Can't miss us. And so we will see you then. Take care, everybody.
You've been listening to the B2B Marketing Mindset with Pete Monfre and Bill Lowell. Add to the conversation by commenting, sharing, and liking. And don't forget to subscribe and check out the links in the comments. Learn more at b2bmarketingmindset.com.